Alright guys, I'm the NFL and today I will be making my recommendations for the 2021 New Orleans Saints. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe if you like these types of videos. I post NFL content all year long, so if you're an NFL fan, you will like my channel, I assure you, unless you have completely different opinions than me, and then even still, you might find it funny just to see what stuff I disagree with you on, whatever. But the Saints, they're a team that, in my opinion, they definitely got a lot worse over this offseason. I mean, obviously losing your starting quarterback who was one of the best in the league at some point, and losing Janoris Jenkins and losing your starting tight end does hurt a lot. And they did lose a lot of minor players too, but they did keep Alvin Kamara. They did keep Michael Thomas, Cameron Jordan, Malcolm Jenkins. They did keep Marshawn Lattimore. Even they did keep a lot of the players that made their team good. And then after they released a lot of people, they got their cap situation back to kind of okay. They signed some more pieces for that defense, and they made sure that their defense is ready just in case Jameis Winston has a bad year. And speaking on Jameis Winston, his whole problem was decision making. He did not make good decisions. And sitting behind Drew Brees, I mean, decision making is something that you can, be taught to, get better at. So I feel like sitting a year behind Drew Brees, I think Jameis Winston has a big chance to revive his career, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jameis Winston has a nice career revival this year, because after sitting behind Drew Brees for over a year, it is going to be great for him, and I feel like he's going to be a pretty good quarterback. Now, obviously, they don't really have too many options outside of Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, because, their starting tight end is Adam Trautman, and behind Michael Thomas, you've got Tre'Quan Smith. So that does kind of put a damper on their offense, obviously, and that defense did lose some pieces, but I'm still a big fan of that defense, and I think their defense is still going to be pretty good. So I think they're definitely a bit underrated right now, and people are thinking they're going to be terrible. I definitely do still think they have a really good chance of making the playoffs, and let's go ahead and see what, ends up happening. So in week one, they start off with a pretty rough home game against the Jordan Love-led Packers. And Jordan Love, I feel like in his first game, is going to play pretty well. He's kind of like Jameis Winston. He's had a year to sit behind one of the best in the league, and that is obviously Aaron Rodgers. So, and Aaron Rodgers is technically still on the team, so he probably will still help out Jordan Love. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers, I know there's a lot of saying about, Aaron Rodgers only wants to leave because they drafted Jordan Love. I don't buy any of that. I think he definitely still will help Jordan Love out. But I feel like Jordan Love isn't going to make this team a whole lot worse. I think they definitely will be worse, but maybe not terrible. The only thing I am worried about is that defense. It isn't good really at all. So, yeah, this one will be a close one, but just seeing as how good that Green Bay offense is, I think they'll be able to kind of get around that New Orleans defense. I don't know if that New Orleans offense is good enough to keep up with Green Bay's offense in a high-scoring game, possibly. So Green Bay is going to get the win here, and New Orleans falls to 0-1 to start the season. Now, in week two, they have their first divisional game. It's an away game against the Carolina Panthers, who now have Sam Darnold at the helm. And I think Sam Darnold, as a whole, throughout the whole season, will be better than Teddy Bridgewater was. There was a three-game stretch last season where Teddy Bridgewater looked like he was going to be their future. He looked really good, and whenever they were 3-2, they started off 0-2, then he won 3 straight games. He looked really good. I think he had the highest completion percentage in the league at one point, and he completely fell apart. I think that Sam Darnold, maybe he won't live up to that 3-game stretch, but the other 13 games, I definitely think Sam Darnold is better than that. So I definitely think that maybe their offense got a tiny bit better. They lost Curtis Samuel, but they kind of got a bit of an upgrade at quarterback. And Sam Darnold's still young. He can definitely play a lot better, and there's a possibility that he goes out there and he plays great with Carolina. The defense has a lot of young players who could definitely, they spent all their draft picks last year on defense. This is a team that really don't know what their defense is going to be able to do to you. So I feel like Carolina is going to be able to probably split with New Orleans, and the way I do splits is I have the home team win each game. So sadly, they're going to start off 0-2, but when I get to week 17, just New Orleans got that win already in the bag. I don't want to go through. I want to kind of be like a storyline, like, they start off 0-2, but then they start coming back or whatever. All right, so now a pretty rough start, but I feel like they were both pretty close games. I don't think they got blown out by the Green Bay. I don't think there's any chance that this was more than just like a 1 or 2 point game. And I'm not even talking about score. I'm talking about point, like 23-22, type game. And then in week 3, they have another away game against the New England Patriots, who also revamped their offense. They went out and they got a lot of new options for Cam Newton. They went out, they got Nelson Aguilar. They went out, they got themselves probably one of the, if not the best tight end duos in the league with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. So I like what New England has done with that offense, and I think they'll be able to get up there with New Orleans' defense. And I also like New England's defense, so I'm going to have to give New England the win. I just feel like they're the better team overall. So New England gets the win here in week 3. So now they fall to 0-3, but I definitely think that they are a lot better than that. I definitely think that whenever I do worst case, best case scenario after I'm done with my predictions, I definitely think this will be a lot different. But going into week 4, they have another home game. Their first home game since week 1 against the New York Giants. They're a couple games behind their bye week. I mean, people are probably calling for Jameis Winston to get benched, even though I don't think that anytime a quarterback loses, people automatically blame it on the quarterback, which is not always true. But in week 4, they have a home game against the New York Giants, who have a pretty solid defense and added a lot to that offense. However, that offense, I don't think Daniel Jones really has what it takes to go up against this New Orleans defense. So I'm going to give New Orleans their first win in week 4 against the New York Giants. And Washington is kind of in that same type of situation, except for Washington has an amazing defense, maybe probably one of the best defenses in the league. I've even heard some people saying that they're the best. I think they're probably top 3, but I don't know if they're the best. You've got some other defenses out there that I think are in that conversation as well. It's just that offense. They did add a lot to that wide receiver room. However, their offensive line isn't great, and Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't spectacular, and I don't know if that offense, I think it'll be a really close one, but I don't know if it's, again, good enough to go up against that New Orleans defense. So I'm going to give New Orleans the win here in week 5 against Washington. So now they bump back up to 2-3. So, it's not completely lost. They're 2-3. Things are, they're not looking up, but they had a nice couple 2-game stretch against teams who, if you see here, I don't think are terrible. Now they go into their bye week. They come out of it going up against the Seahawks. It's an away game, and the Seahawks, they have such a good team, but that offense has been a bit dampened across the years. It's slowly gotten worse. However, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and they just re-signed Chris Carson. I do like what this offense has to offer, and that defense, while not as good as it was a couple of years back, still is pretty good. So I think this will be a close one, but I'm going to have Seattle win this one. I'm sorry. They have a pretty rough schedule here. But hey, in week 8, they have a home game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Tom Brady has struggled. Last year, he struggled a lot against that New Orleans defense. Both of their regular season games were the worst games that Tampa Bay has played in a while. I'm talking, it was horrible. Definitely last year, it was their worst games were against New Orleans. They kind of came back in the offseason, but still, that was kind of horrendous. So I'm still going to have New Orleans split, and I don't think they can sweep like they did last year. But I definitely think that Tampa Bay, there's something about New Orleans that just, it irked him wrong. Probably his worst game of the postseason was probably that New Orleans game. That was a pretty close one that New Orleans definitely could have won if a couple plays had gone their way. So, yeah, I like what Tampa Bay has got going. Obviously, I look right here, 14-2, and I'm going to have them win here, so 15-2. I definitely like what they're doing. But anyways, in week 9, they have a home game against Atlanta. Atlanta should have taken a quarterback, in my opinion. I feel like Kyle Pitts is definitely going to help their offense a lot, but I don't think that he's going to help it as much as a Trey Lance would have or a Justin Fields, as I feel like they should have taken. Trey Lance wasn't even on the board, so yeah, Justin Fields definitely. So I feel like this offense is definitely still on the decline. They did add Kyle Pitts, but it's still not great. So maybe it's not on the decline this year. It kind of took a bit of a bump up, but still it's not good. Their defense had a couple great games, and I say great as in really good. They just blew the Raiders out of the water last season, and it was mainly because of their great defense or the way their kind of good defense played. Their defense looked really good at the end of last year, and if that can carry over into this season, they definitely could be a contender, but I don't think it will. New Orleans is going to get the win, and this is one where I don't know if it's going to be a split or a sweep in week 18. So yeah, now they're back up to .500. They're 4-4. They can kind of forget they're at the midseason mark. They're definitely still in the postseason conversation. They definitely have some rough games going, but the rest of their season isn't as tough. So they're probably looking at the playoffs thinking, all right, we have to get past week 10, week 12. There's a couple rough games on here, but we've got, we can still make the playoffs. So now in week 10, an away game against the Tennessee Titans, who have such a good offense. The only bad thing is they did lose Adam Humphries, they did lose Jonnu Smith, and they really haven't done much. Oh yeah, and Corey Davis, and they really haven't done anything at all to replace them. Oh yeah, they signed Julio Jones. Never mind. Good God, they signed. So that's not even the Tennessee Titans won this one. I completely forgot about that. That's another reason why when I'm done with my normal predictions or my first round of predictions, I'm gonna update them again in time for the regular season is because Julio Jones wasn't on the Titans when I did their predictions, so they're just kind of off. They definitely be better than 12-5. But yeah, Tennessee, I'm so used to saying anytime I talk about Tennessee, they didn't do anything to fix their wide receiver problem. But yeah, they just got Julio Jones. That's a big upgrade. So now they're 4-5, but they have an away game against the Philadelphia Eagles, who completely got rid of everybody. They're just really hoping that Jalen Hurts pays off and is good. And I definitely think that he's good, but he really only had 1 or 2 good games. I mean, he got benched in week 17, and people always say, "Oh, they were trying to lose." He wasn't any good. He hadn't played great. I mean, he was pretty bad in that game, and he had been pretty bad the couple games before. So it makes sense that they would be like, all right, let's see maybe what our backup quarterback has to offer. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think they should have left him in, but it's whatever. New Orleans gets this win. This is probably the closest one I think could be a blowout. I just think New Orleans is so far above Philadelphia. And in week 12, they have a home game against the Bills. And the Bills have just such a good defense. That defense is so freaking good. And they added Emmanuel Sanders to that already. I mean, they're probably might be the best team in the league. They're up there with the Chiefs. It's a pretty close thing. I know a lot of people are really underrating them and saying they're just kind of good. The Bills are one of the best teams in the league right now. And I'm sorry, but I don't think New Orleans has what it takes to get back up there. So now they're kind of bouncing back and forth. They went 4-4, 4-5, 5-5, 5-6. It's kind of going back and forth. And now in week 13, they have a home game against the Dallas Cowboys, who added back Dak, and they did add some pieces to that secondary. They didn't do anything to help with that offensive line, though. No big moves. They signed a couple players who probably aren't going to make any difference. So, I mean, I feel like offensive line was probably the biggest issue. I mean, you saw Zeke, he struggled last year, and that was one because he wasn't playing great himself, but also because they didn't have an offensive line. They had a pretty bad offensive line to begin with, and then they got injured. So, no offensive line depth and no offensive line to begin with. New Orleans is going to get this win and go back up to .500. Now they're 6-6, and I've already told you you already know the outcome of 2 of these games, so. We might as well make it 7-7. But at week 14, they have an away game against the Jets. It's kind of like a little break from that back and forth thing, because I don't think there's any way New Orleans loses this one. Loses is this one? What kind of English am I speaking? So now they jump up to 7-6, their first winning record of the season. This is the first time I think they've had a winning record all season. So they're 7-6. They're definitely in the playoff conversation. They're probably already out of the NFC South conversation. I think the NFC South is firmly in the Buccaneers' hands. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with that. And like I already said, they're going to take a split here. So now they drop back down to 7-7. And you know that eventually they're going to have to get above .500 because we don't have 16 games. We have 17 games. But, looking at, especially the NFC West down here, it's going to be tough to make the playoffs as a wild card spot. So they really have to struggle here in these last couple of games. But a week 16 against the Miami Dolphins, I feel like Miami did show that Tua Tagovailoa is their starting quarterback by only signing Jacoby Brissett, who is not starting caliber at all. I think he's just a replacement backup for Ryan Fitzpatrick, really. So I feel like if Tua Tagovailoa, I can say his last name, guys, don't worry. If he can take that second-year step, the Dolphins can be really something good. I don't know if he can, because he wasn't. A lot of their wins last year were from him botching things, him not playing great, and Ryan Fitzpatrick coming in and kind of saving the day. So I don't know if they can get this win over New Orleans, and I already said what's going to happen in week 17. So come on, there we go. So now they're 9-7. They already know they've got that winning record in the bag, and now they have an away game against Atlanta that, if the season goes this way, this could be a pretty important one, because the difference between 9-8 and 10-7. With the pretty rough NFC West that you've got over here, it's looking pretty rough that they even make the playoffs with this kind of team down here. But hey, who knows? There's always that extra spot. So they just need to beat out the Cardinals. Okay, yeah, I forgot that there's 7 spots this year, not just 6, because normally there's only 2 extra spots. But yeah, okay, so definitely still, don't ignore that. They can definitely still make the playoffs. I think they're gonna sweep Atlanta. I'm sorry, I was sitting here thinking that's why I started rambling there, because I was sitting there thinking like, what can I do? I sit here and think about it. I think they're gonna sweep Atlanta. So they start off rough at 0-3. They end the season 10-4 with their 4 losses coming against some pretty good teams. Now let's go through worst case scenario. And I can guarantee you it's not going to be that great. This is Jameis Winston. Basically didn't learn much. He's his same old 30 interception self. And the offense really struggles from all the losses. The additions don't play all that well. These 2 games are probably games that they. Well, no. Yeah, I just want to hand it that, but I definitely think that the Washington's defense, how good that is, if Jameis Winston doesn't play all that well, I definitely think that Washington defense can take advantage of it enough to get the win. They could get swept by Tampa Bay. That's definitely a big possibility here. No. And I could see them split with Atlanta. So their worst case scenario, and again, this is not likely. This is absolute worst case scenario. Basically, everything goes wrong except for injuries and all that, because I'm not going to say that every single starter gets injured. That's a cheap way to get out of things. But anyways, 7-10 is their absolute worst case scenario, and this is not likely at all. This is absolute worst case scenario. Now, let's add these back. There we go, and there we go, and there we go. Back up to 10-7. All right, now absolute best case scenario, they could definitely sweep Carolina. That's not even a question. And then I'm thinking, they could beat New England. I'm still, if Jordan Love doesn't, this is first game, Jordan Love's first game, I could definitely see New Orleans getting the win here. And that's about it. So basically, the only thing that changed is that instead of starting out 0-3, they start out 5-0. So yeah, thank you so much. Oh, I should probably add these back before I forget to. Just so, because I know there are a lot of people that skip to the end, and I had the Browns going 12-5, but their best case scenario is 15-2, and I had a guy comment, "You have the Browns going 15-2? Really? Wow." I'm like, no, I had them going 12-5. They had skipped to the end, so I try to keep it at what I think they will be as much as possible. So now they're 10-7. So now I already know that these teams are not making the playoffs. So really, what they have to hope for is that these 2 teams don't win all the rest of their games, especially Carolina, because they lost the game to them. They have to hope that the Giants or Washington has a pretty rough other 9 games that I haven't predicted yet, and they have to hope that Arizona doesn't win 6 more games. So yeah, so it's a pretty long shot. The NFC is going to be a pretty crazy place. They don't have. It's kind of weird because, you look at the AFC, they have a lot of really good teams, but, they have some good teams, and the rest of the teams that don't make the playoffs are all really bad. Or not really bad, but they're not double-digit wins. You look at the NFC, you're going to have a team probably that has double-digit wins that ends up not making the playoffs. I don't know. I still have 10 more teams to go, so I don't know why I'm saying all this. But thank you so much for watching this. If you're still somehow watching, please comment avocado, just so I know. And I hope to see you in the next one. Like and subscribe, do all that. By the way, in the next one, if you're mad about me making you guys 10-7, you can go watch my Carolina Panthers video, or my Atlanta video, because I guarantee you they're going to be way worse than 10-7, especially my Atlanta video, because I think they're really bad. Thanks for watching. Hope